Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. I am so glad you're joining us today because we're going to unpack a pretty uncomfortable truth about global public health. Look, every single year we hear the exact same stories. Cholera is back, Lassa fever is resurfacing, measles outbreaks are on the rise again, and you kind of have to ask, why? Why do they stubbornly refuse to stay gone? Well, today we're going to answer exactly that. But to do it, we have to completely shift our focus away from the symptoms and start looking at the systems.
It's honestly like we're stuck on this giant hamster wheel, and the cycle is incredibly, frustratingly predictable. Day one hits, an outbreak is declared, and panic sets in. By month 3, emergency teams have flooded the zone, resources are pouring in, and things actually improve. Everyone breathes a huge sigh of relief. But then, give it a year, and bam, the exact same disease is right back where it started. We are literally just chasing these diseases around instead of getting ahead of them. All right, let's dive into this. The reason this crazy loop exists is actually pretty simple, but fixing it requires a massive mindset shift. Right now, we're spending way too much energy treating the symptoms, hyper-focusing on hospitals, drugs, and these massive emergency responses, but we are completely ignoring the system itself. True public health is about proactive fixes, preventative infrastructure. I mean, yes, treating a sick patient is absolutely vital, but preventing them from getting sick in the first place, that is how you actually break the cycle. So how do we actually do that? Well, here is our treatment plan for today's explainer. We're going to logically break down these systemic gaps into 4 main pillars: environment and prevention, behavior and detection, data and coordination, and finally, workforce, trust, and sustainability. We've got a lot of fascinating ground to cover, so let's jump right in. Starting off with pillar number 1, environment and prevention. This is really our first major gap. True prevention happens long before a patient ever sets foot in a hospital. There's a quote from our research that really hits the nail on the head here. Because without fixing the environment, diseases will always return. We tend to picture public health as just, doctors in white coats. But honestly, prevention happens in water systems. It happens in sanitation. It happens in how we handle our trash. When drainages are just permanently blocked or waste disposal is totally chaotic, those aren't just annoyances. They are massive, recurring public health risks. They basically roll out the red carpet for diseases like cholera. The fix here comes down to practical, physical solutions. Local governments have to invest heavily in community-level wash systems. That's water, sanitation, and hygiene. And I don't just mean digging a borehole and walking away. It means routine, ongoing water quality monitoring. It means building structured waste collection systems. And crucially, it requires community sanitation enforcement. Just spreading awareness and telling people to keep things clean isn't going to cut it. We need the actual physical infrastructure and the enforcement to back it up. Moving right along to section 2, behavior and detection. This is all about the human element. This phase is really fascinating because it's all about what people believe and how those beliefs drive action. Normally, public health just relies on information delivery. We just tell people, wash your hands or get your kids vaccinated. But let's be real, blasting raw information at people rarely changes their behavior on its own. Instead, we need to shift to what's called behavior design. You see, human behavior is driven by local beliefs, culture, and the daily realities people are dealing with. If you ignore the local culture, your health messaging is going to fall completely flat. It's like trying to play a cassette tape in a smartphone. It just doesn't compute. So how do we do behavior design right? Well, we have to partner with local influencers and religious leaders, the folks people actually listen to and trust in their community. We need to use behavioral insights, things like subtle nudges and social proof. And we have to design these messages in local languages, using scenarios that actually make sense in their day-to-day lives. Because if someone doesn't genuinely believe the message, there is no way they're going to act on it. Okay, so what happens when prevention fails and poor early detection takes over? Well, an outbreak almost never starts with flashing lights and sirens at a major hospital. It is way stealthier than that. Step 1, it starts incredibly quietly in someone's home or a small community. Step 2, the transmission expands, totally under the radar of the formal health system. It's only at step 3 that cases finally show up at the hospitals. And by the time that happens, the outbreak has already scaled dangerously, and the cost of stopping it in both money and human lives has just skyrocketed. If we want to catch these threats at step 1, early detection requires really robust, community-based surveillance. We've got to train informants and volunteers who are already right there on the ground. And we can empower them with incredibly simple mobile reporting tools, like basic USSD codes or simple apps. You shouldn't need a $1,000 smartphone to report a public health threat, right? Plus, We need to actually incentivize people to report unusual illnesses. Early catching it drastically reduces the spread. All right, that brings us to Section 3, data and coordination. Now we're zooming out to the macro level. We're shifting from individual communities to how massive organizations actually talk to each other. Look, public health decisions live or die by data. If your data is delayed, incomplete, or just flat out wrong, your decisions are going to be terribly weak. Facility data alone isn't enough to see the full picture. We have to build integrated, real-time data systems that link what's happening out in the community directly with the facilities. We need digital dashboards at the state and local government levels. And we have to introduce routine data validation. Simply put, better data leads directly to better life-saving decisions. But here's the catch. Data is completely useless if the people holding it aren't talking to each other. When efforts are fragmented, meaning weak coordination where actors operate in complete isolation, chaos wins. Public health is not just one organization's job. It takes a village. Government, private partners, the community itself. We absolutely need multi-sector coordination. When everyone works together, aligned under one unified strategy, the whole response turns into a well-oiled machine. So how do we guarantee that alignment? By strengthening our coordination platforms. That means establishing highly functional emergency operations centers right at the state level. It means running regular, multi-sector simulation exercises, kind of like a fire drill, but for outbreaks, so everyone knows exactly what to do before a real crisis hits. And it requires crystal clear roles and strict accountability structures. A coordinated system responds faster, wastes way fewer resources, and is infinitely more effective. Which leads us perfectly into our final pillar, Section 4, Workforce, Trust, and Sustainability. This is all about keeping the system fully funded, highly skilled, and actually trusted by the people it serves. And it brings us to what I call the sustainability trap. Check out how dangerous this is. Month 1, an outbreak peaks. Panic sits in, the attention is sky high, and resources are massively mobilized. But by month 6, cases decline, and the systems just relax. Fast forward to year 1, funding completely drops off, focus shifts to the next shiny problem, and the health system weakens all over again. This exact drop-off in attention is exactly why the diseases return. The hard truth is, preparedness cannot be a seasonal hobby. To fix this, we have to embed routine preparedness directly into the DNA of the health system. That means continuous, unbroken funding for surveillance and WASH, regardless of whether there's an active outbreak. It requires the regular, ongoing training of our health workers and the total institutionalization of outbreak preparedness plans so they are always ready to deploy. And speaking of the workforce, we have a massive capacity gap to address. Public health challenges are evolving incredibly fast, but the workforce often isn't evolving at the same pace. Clinicians are amazing, but today's challenges require so much more. We need multidisciplinary development. We need epidemiologists trained in data science and AI. We need experts in risk communication to battle misinformation. And we've got to create fellowships and continuous learning platforms to keep all these skills razor sharp. But guys, if you take nothing else away from this explainer, please remember this. Trust turns messages into action. You could have the most advanced AI, the deepest pockets, and the best emergency operations centers on the planet. But if the community does not trust the health system, they will resist your interventions. A system without the community's trust will inevitably 100% fail. And trust isn't something you can just demand. It is earned through consistency and absolute transparency. To build that trust, we have to engage with communities before, during, and long after an outbreak occurs. We have to share information openly. Don't treat the public like they can't handle the truth. Most importantly, we have to bring the community to the table as active partners in the decision-making process, rather than just passive recipients of our rules. So, zooming out to the big picture here, diseases keep coming back not because they are invincible, but because our underlying systems are not yet strong enough. But the good news? This cycle can absolutely be broken. If we prioritize our environment, understand human behavior, detect threats early, integrate our data, coordinate our sectors, sustain our funding, and actually earn the deep trust of our communities, we can stop these outbreaks before they even begin. Because ultimately, a strong health system doesn't chase diseases, it prevents them. The future of our public health completely depends on the choices we make right now. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on. What will we choose to fix today? If you found this explainer valuable, please hit that like button, subscribe for more structured insights, and most importantly, share your thoughts in the comments below so we can keep spreading this vital knowledge. Until next time, stay curious and stay focused.